What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the channel, and we're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Nascimento. We got Derek Lewis in another fucking main event. Let's just break it down, though. If you haven't seen my reaction to UFC 301, we went 10-2 on that card. I lost the main event prediction. I'll put the stats up right here. I feel like I won that. Steve Erceg was robbed. I don't care what anybody says. I don't even care about anybody's opinions on it. Steve Erceg was robbed. But, alas, we move forward. We've got a new set of fights to talk about. So let's just start with the first fight of the night. JJ Aldrich taking on Veronica Hardy. This is a good matchup. Pretty much every matchup on the card, except for maybe like two of them, are damn near pick 'em odds, which is fun to see. It's a really tightly contested card all the way through, damn near. I don't really know who I've got in this, because low-key I want to side with JJ Aldrich. She's just a little bit bigger of a girl, and I feel like she can impose her grappling game quite well over Veronica Hardy. But every time I pick against Veronica Hardy, she ends up finding a way. Now, the level of competition they've faced is a bit different, I'll be honest with you. I think JJ Aldrich's schedule has been a bit stronger. But I do have a weird feeling that Veronica Hardy is just on like a career run right now at flyweight. I'm going to trust Veronica Hardy to get this one done by a decision. If you were betting on this one, I wouldn't pick a winner. It's too close. I would probably just pick this fight to go to a decision, even though the money line's not going to be that strong on that. If you really, really want to be risky, parlay it with whoever you think's going to win. It should most likely go to a decision, though. And then we move up the card, Jake Hadley versus Charles Johnson at flyweight. This is a difficult fight to call because Charles Johnson, despite having 6 losses on his record, and a lot of them being pretty recent, in all honesty, because he fights so much, you know, he's still a tricky flyweight at the end of the day. He's still, like, I believe, a state champion wrestler. I might be wrong about that one. You can double check me. I'm pretty sure he's at least, like, a high-level wrestler, collegiate wrestler, or something along those lines. He has great scrambles. He never lets anybody really, like, pin him down to the mat. But he does let people take fights away from him really quickly. And I feel like he breaks in fights where Hadley doesn't really as often. He hasn't shown me that type of ability to wilt, let's just say. So I am going to be siding with Hadley in this one. He's like a slight favorite. I understand why. Charles Johnson's not a bad underdog to take, but I do think that Jake Hadley is just going to do a lot more on the feet. He's going to prove that he's just, I don't know, I think more of a worthy contender, more worthy to be called a contender. At this point, I think Charles Johnson is just kind of like somewhat of a gatekeeper in his own right, even though he's not ranked or anything. He's just, I don't know, he's kind of middle line at flyweight. Moving on up the card. Oh, okay, well, actually, let me give you a prediction, or a betting prediction. If I was to prop on that fight, I would go with Jake Hadley landing more significant strikes than Charles Johnson. And if you want to also like add to that, you could add Charles Johnson's probably going to land more takedowns, because I don't think Jake Hadley's going to go for very many, if any. Moving on up the card, Trey Waters taking on Billy Goff at welterweight. This is a good fight. Billy Goff's a tough kid. Trey Waters, I haven't seen too much of him yet, but the one fight I did pick for him, I picked against him, and I was wrong. He's kind of like a sniper on the feet. He's good at using his range, and he's really big. He's really tall. Billy Goff, on the other hand, tough guy. Bites down on his mouthpiece type of guy and swings. If he gets in the pocket, I think this could be bad for Trey Waters, and maybe even he can make some takedowns. And we might find out that Trey Waters doesn't know how to get up. I don't know. It's really nerve-wracking to pick these type of fights. You know, the way I'm talking about it, it sounds like I'm leaning Billy Goff, but I'm actually going to be picking Trey Waters to get this one done. I think Billy Goff is a little bit too tough, so I do think it'll go to a decision. I could be really eating my words here. It might even just be a quick finish. I'm going to side with Trey Waters, though. I think he's going to be able to keep Billy Goff at the end of his jab, at the end of his straights. And it's going to be a tough time in the office for Billy Goff, finding his way inside to land shots. Moving on up the card, Tabatha Ricci taking on Tecia Pennington. Used to be Tecia Torres, now it's Tecia Pennington. I'm going to be siding with Tabatha Ricci here. This is honestly a difficult one to pick because Tecia Pennington, it's hard not to say Tecia Torres. It was so easy before. Tecia, I feel like she's a little bit better pretty much everywhere, if I'm being honest with you. I just think Ricci is more serious about her career. You know, she's in a different spot. She's young, up and coming. She wants to make a name for herself. She wants to go on some kind of a run. While Tecia, on the other hand, I feel like she's already out of the game. She's really just probably doing this for money, or I don't know what, to be completely honest with you. But from her performances as of recent, I just don't really see her seeming like she's trying to chase a title or anything along those lines. So I'm going to trust Tabatha Ricci to get this one done. Another one by decision because I don't think women on this card really have the most finishing potential in competitive matchups. I'm going to side with Tabatha Ricci getting this one done, probably winning 2 rounds. I think she's going to be able to effectively use her grappling after like the first couple of takedowns. I think it's going to be rough because Tecia Torres is a pretty solid wrestler and a scrambler, but I think Tabatha Ricci is just going to be one step ahead, and then that is going to parlay into her striking. Moving on up the card, Terrance McKinney taking on Esteban Ribovics. This is a tough one. Terrance McKinney at plus money is really hard to ignore, though. I am going to be siding with Terrance McKinney because he's just an exciting prospect, even despite some of his recent losses. He's young. You could tell he's really learning. He comes back pretty strong. He has some decent wins to his name already. And even one of his losses against somebody like Drew Dober, we saw what happened the first round, bro. Like, honestly, the older he gets, I think he's going to become more of a menace because he has God-given gifts. Esteban Ribovics is a solid, young up-and-comer. He's a great striker. I feel like Terrance McKinney is going to be able to, do decent on the feet and then find his takedowns quite easily, and it's going to be hard for Ribovics. I think Terrance McKinney can wrap up a submission. If you really want to be risky, prop Terrance McKinney by a submission. Overall, though, I do think he's getting this one done, and I do think regardless of the winner, this fight's ending within the distance. Moving on, up the prelims, the prelim headliner, Chase Hooper versus Viacheslav Borshchev. This is a hard one to call because Chase Hooper can just surprise you sometimes. And he looks a little bit more filled out at lightweight. I think if he could really add on to his frame, he might be able to make a name for himself. But he needs to improve that striking, man. And against somebody like Viacheslav, who's coming off of an absolute war where he had to defend the takedowns and he had to be physical and show his athleticism, he passed with flying colors. Well, not with flying colors, but he did pretty damn good. And against somebody like Chase, who has a different type of takedown game, a different type of grappling game for sure, I feel like it's just going to be a bit easy for Viacheslav on the feet because Chase doesn't really like blast doubles or find those type of like explosive takedowns. And I feel like you need to against somebody like Viacheslav if you're going to try to like blanket him once you get him there. I feel like if it goes to the ground, though, it is going to be a wrap. Chase Hooper is underrated in the grappling, and that's coming from, honestly, yeah, no, he's just underrated in the grappling. I'm going to be siding with Viacheslav. It's a really close fight on the odds. I would pick him to probably get it done. I think by TKO. I think Chase Hooper's tough, but he's going to be finding the chin one too many times, and it's going to be a matter of, your body not being able to withhold. Fuck, I can't talk. I just think he's going to get TKO'd. Moving on up the card, Waldo Cortes-Acosta taking on Robelis Despaigne. Oh, Robelis Despaigne. In the first minute prop. I'm taking Robelis Despaigne. I think he's going to be disrespectful. He's going to come in there, and he's just going to land on Waldo, who's probably going to try to bite down and throw back, but the speed and the power is just going to be too much, and he's going to get knocked out in the first round. And like I said, I would prop it in the first minute if you want to be a dangerous bettor. That plus 400 prop's looking pretty solid. Robelis Despaigne is just next level as a prospect. Waldo Cortes-Acosta, in his own right, is decent, and I don't think he's lost. Has he lost in the UFC yet, even? He has. He lost to he lost to Rogerio de Lima, I remember. Okay. Yeah. And he's already shown to lose to somebody that slow. Yeah, no, there's no way. Robelis Despaigne all day. Moving on up the card, Alex Caceres taking on Sean Woodson. Yo, okay, this is tough. For once, okay, so I'm going to be picking Sean Woodson, but it's not what you think. I think Alex Caceres is going to win this fight, but I think it's going to be too close. He's going to lose the first round and then start to really figure out Woodson and make it tricky and difficult for Woodson to do anything. But on the judges' scorecards, for some reason, they're just going to have Woodson by a split decision. I think they're going to rob Alex Caceres of a clear-cut second and third round. I think he's just too tricky on the feet, but honestly, Sean Woodson is quite decent and tricky himself. He fights behind that freakish build and range that he has. Kind of a weight bully, but Alex Caceres is the type of matchup where, like, it doesn't really matter. If you're a striker weight bully like that, he's going to find a way to, like, still make it a competitive fight. But I do think Sean Woodson ultimately is going to win this fight just by making it really close, landing, I don't know, a good amount of shots, a good amount of significant strikes, but I don't think it's going to be anything too damaging. I'd be surprised if he could get somebody like Alex Caceres out of there or really dominate him. But yeah, I'll be picking Sean Woodson by split decision robbery. Moving on up the card, Diego Ferreira taking on Mateusz Rebecki. Ooh, this guy's a tank. If Diego Ferreira was a little bit more active, I'd probably be siding with Diego Ferreira, but he just doesn't find enough. And, despite his solid world-class level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and his great scrambles, decent wrestling even for a Brazilian guy who started with Jiu-Jitsu, or to my knowledge started with Jiu-Jitsu, and has some knockout power, but he's taken on somebody that's 19-1, hasn't lost in the UFC yet, and is a physical specimen who just, isn't going to budge in the grappling. I think he's going to be able to wet blanket Diego Ferreira better than anybody else has, even like somebody like Mateusz Gamrot. I think he's just going to find ways to, make this a really tough fight for Diego. And I think he's going to TKO him in the second round after a dominant first round. So I'm going to be siding with Mateusz Rebecki by TKO. Moving on up the card, the feature fight of the night, Alonzo Menifield taking on Carlos Ulberg, the pretty much only prospect coming out of City Kickboxing. Carlos Ulberg is a sniper on the feet. Alonzo Menifield is a power-handed wrestler, I guess. Explosive wrestler, built like a specimen, a lot of heart. But honestly, I think this is just a tough matchup, and the odds kind of reflect it. 2-1 for Carlos Ulberg. He's just too slick on the feet. I think he's going to find his shots all day when Alonzo Menifield tries to close the distance and come in. He's going to have to try to make it a grappling heavy game from like the minute the bell rings, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do that as fluidly as his team is going to want him to. So I'm going to trust Carlos Ulberg to get this one done by TKO. I don't know what round, so I would just prop this one by TKO for Ulberg. I think this one's pretty safe. Moving on up the card, co-main event, another one that I think is pretty safe. Joaquin Buckley taking on Nursulton Ruziboev, who has, almost 50 fights, like 46 fights. His record's 34-8, which is ridiculous. Joaquin Buckley is coming off of a win over, Vicente Luque. It looks like Luque just bet on himself to lose by TKO in the second round. Basically gave up a takedown for free. Wasn't really resisting, fell to his back, and just laid there and took shots on his arms and got TKO'd. Craziness. I can't hate on Joaquin because he did what he needed to do. He came in there and he won, and he got a finish. But Nursulton Ruziboev, man, this guy is just... It's the shortest welterweight versus the tallest, 5'9" versus 6'5". Nursulton lands clean uppercuts all the time. It's like his favorite shot on the feet. And I just have this vision of Joaquin Buckley trying to close the pocket and do that explosive shit he does and getting caught with an uppercut and then with a hook or something just bad, like a straight down the pipe, something bad. I think he's going to get knocked out pretty cold, like we've seen it happen to him already a few times, even just in the UFC. He's a solid prospect, but bro, when there's somebody like this in this weight class, straight weight bully. People say he's not 6'5". You can see him stand up against Cedric Dumas, who's 6'2", solid 6'2", 6'3". And he's, visibly bigger than him. He looks like a 6'5" man. This guy is just a freak of nature, and he's like a striker that has, that Dagestani grappling still. He still can resort to decent grappling, but he's mainly a striker, which is scary. I think Joaquin Buckley is going to find out really quickly in the first round that this guy is trying to go for the title. Welterweight's getting a little bit stacked. If Joaquin Buckley can really pull this one off and, get a finish, bro, I might have to side with him against anybody because this is the worst stylistic matchup for him in the whole division. Literally probably the worst. It's his nightmare matchup. So respect to Joaquin for stepping in and taking this fight. And then we have the main event, Derek Lewis versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Nascimento is a plus 140 favorite, which is crazy to me. Let me just double check who he's even faced in the UFC. I honestly mixed him up with Waldo Cortez and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I fused all of them in my head. So he's beaten Tanner Boser by split decision, Ilir Latifi by split decision, and Dontel Mays, which doesn't look like too bad of a win anymore, honestly. Oh, and he lost to Chris Daukaus. That's crazy, actually. Lost to Chris Daukaus. Oh my gosh. Do I have to pick Derek Lewis just because of that? I've been telling myself Rodrigo. Do I have to just side with Derek Lewis because of that? I'm siding with Derek Lewis. I've told myself I would never pick Derek Lewis again. I'm siding with Derek Lewis to do some freakish shit like he did to Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He just finds ways. I'm going to trust Derek Lewis to just find a way. Sometimes, like how he just stands up in jiu-jitsu, he just stops caring about wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He just stands up. I think he's just going to win. No explanation needed. Derek Lewis is going to find a way to get the knockout. Bet the house on it. Don't do that. Please don't do that. But I am going to be siding with Derek Lewis by knockout, I guess. This is just a last minute pick, you know what? Like, maybe this is what I need to finally get a full card, to just switch it up completely. But yeah, that's going to be all for me today. So let me know what you guys think down below. Fights take place tomorrow. Yeah, just get to that card. I'll catch y'all.